There's a headline floating around right now that sounds almost too good to question, and that's 1 million new homes privately funded, branded as Trump homes. And if that were real, it would change the housing economy overnight. Today, we need to talk about the gap between headline and reality because according to HousingWire and Bloomberg, this plan does not exist in the way that people really think it does. So this story landed at a very sensitive moment for housing. We're heading into 2026 spring season, and affordability is still stretched, builders are cautious, and the market is hungry for any large-scale solutions. That's why a Bloomberg report suggesting $250 billion privately funded rent-to-own initiatives delivering up to 1 million homes really grabbed a lot of attention. It felt like the cavalry was finally arriving with all of our housing concerns, and this was the big solution. The problem, according to HousingWire's exclusive reporting, that narrative is not an accurate reflection of reality. So the Bloomberg report reported that U.S. home builders were developing an ambitious initiative internally branded as Trump Homes, centered on a large-scale rent-to-own model, which will potentially produce up to 1 million homes, over $200 billion in housing value, and it's going to be backed primarily by private capital, not federal spending. On paper, this sounded like a bold, coordinated response to this housing affordability crisis. But according to multiple home building executives speaking to HousingWire, that coordination does not exist. So here's the part that gets lost in the headlines. Since Donald Trump returned to office, home builders have been actively engaged with the White House, federal agencies, different policy intermediaries and advisors, and those conversations are real, and they have been substantial. However, builders have brought forth ideas on both sides of the affordability equation. We need things answered like faster permitting, land use reform, infrastructure financing, labor force development, and better regulatory streamlining. And to help those subjects as well, you need down payment assistance, mortgage credit flexibility, shared equity structures, and just alternative paths to ownership. But here's the key point. According to multiple industry executives cited by HousingWire, none of these proposals have advanced towards implementation. It's just all talk right now. So first off, the rent-to-own idea, it's discussed, not endorsed. I used to do a lot of these back in my earlier investing days. And yes, builders have discussed rent-to-own as a theoretical pathway. That part is true. But a household rents a newly built home for a set period, often 2 years, with some portion of rent potentially converting into a future down payment. That's what the idea is and how it works. But here's what builders themselves have told HousingWire. This model is extremely difficult to execute at scale. And knowing that I did this when I was not working in a large building operation, they are absolutely correct on that. And other challenges that builders will identify in this niche include appraised value risks during the rental period, who absorbs the price appreciation or depreciation, because one or the other could happen. It could go up in value, it could go down. Distorted comparable sales can occur, and operational complexity across property management, financing, and just the overall resale process. So the builders are not pitching this as a turnkey solution. They're describing it as high friction, capital intensive, risky, and operationally fragile. And that's at a national scale, which could actually exaggerate the problems we already have. And just as important to that, not only the builders, the White House receptiveness has been described as tepid at best. So in the weeks leading up to the president's Davos appearance, some builders were told through policy channels to expect a major housing initiative. And expectations rose that builders might be directly reflected in a marquee affordability plan. However, that moment never came. At Davos, housing was discussed in broad terms, nothing specific, but no builder-anchored program, no rent-to-own framework, and no Trump home initiatives were ever announced. And since then, builders report no follow-up suggesting that such a program is near. So where's this whole narrative coming from? This is the most revealing part of the HousingWire report. According to industry sources, the primary advocates floating a large-scale, federally coordinated rent-to-own concept are not home builders. These are lobbyists representing institutional single-family rental home investors. From that perspective, the structure makes sense. Institutional investors provide capital, builders provide product, the federal government provides policy backing, rent-to-own provides political cover. But what builders dispute very strongly is the idea that this represents a builder-driven White House-endorsed plan already in motion. It's not. And HousingWire again reports that executives at major builders are unaware of any agreed framework, working group, or concrete program mechanics. And as we've all learned, a tweet on Twitter does not make it true. This isn't about politics, it's about execution risk. The U.S. housing crisis is not short on ideas. It's short on alignment, coordination, and actual follow-through. By overstating progress or prematurely branding a policy, we create the illusion of momentum where none exists. And that can be very dangerous. Builders know that real solutions must confront the fundamentals. Land constraints, local opposition, infrastructure costs, impact fees, labor shortages, insurance viability, overspending on materials still from the pandemic. These are absent in movement on all fronts. Even the most elegant ownership pathway remains theoretical for a lot of people. So here's the sober takeaway. There is no unified Trump homes proposal being advanced by U.S. homebuilders. There is no green-lit federal rent-to-own program. There is no $250 billion initiative awaiting rollout. Now, this could be an opportunity or a crisis for investors who are looking to own their own properties. Again, this rent-to-own program is, again, just something getting onto the whiteboard. So this means that it could come into effect down the road if you own property. And if it never comes into effect, that means there's still going to be more and more renters. So the people that are able to find strong fundamentals in new construction deals that still make sense can still depend on a large amount of a tenant network, of a tenant pool to rent their properties, especially in key areas where you want to do your homework, where there's still good affordability, good population growth, economic growth, and something drawing people to the areas. The rent-to-own is a far way off, so the people that still provide the rental, I think, will be in high demand in key areas. So in a nutshell, you don't need to be cynical here, but you do need to be precise. Headlines sell hope, so do tweets. We don't need to look at that. Housing works on math, logistics, and actual follow-through. And until the land, the labor, the impact fees, the capital constraints are addressed for all involved, there is no silver bullet program. You have to look at things on a deal-by-deal basis. You have to look at them on an individual market-by-market basis. No matter how good the branding sounds, you got to look under the hood, and you also have to ask yourself the questions, how close is this actually to being implemented? Or, again, is it just selling hope? So again, if you're a builder and investor and you're not looking for the strategy of hope, we're going to continue to get into deeper fundamentals of which markets are still working regardless of whether the Trump homes come into effect or not. Where do the fundamentals still make sense? Where can you save on certain cost, impact fees, where the cash flow numbers actually work? And the interest rates that you can receive on the loans are same as they were in 2021. We'll be hitting some of those areas, how you can get that in some of our next videos. So hit subscribe if you want to learn more, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next video.